6 months passed. Harvest season arrived on New Haven, and Daesung's fields turned from green to golden. The grain was ready to be cut, collected, and stored. It was the busiest time of year, and Daesung worked from dawn until after dark every day. The galaxy had not forgotten what happened in that field. The story spread across hundreds of worlds. Every species heard different versions. Some said the human was a secret warrior disguised as a farmer. Others said he used hidden technology. A few claimed he was part of a special military program designed to look harmless. But the truth was simpler and somehow more frightening. He was just a farmer. An ordinary human doing ordinary work. The Vrex Dominion formally withdrew all claims on human territory. They issued a decree that marked Earth and its colonies as protected space. Other alien species took notice. If the powerful Dominion was avoiding humans, maybe there was a good reason. Trade negotiations began across human space. Species that had ignored Earth before suddenly wanted to establish diplomatic relations. They approached carefully, politely, treating humans with cautious respect. On New Haven, life had mostly returned to normal. The Vrex ship left orbit after signing trade contracts with Mayor G1. The town of Clearwater became a minor hub for interstellar commerce. Alien merchants visited regularly to buy grain and other agricultural products. Daesung avoided all of it. He stayed on his farm, working his fields, maintaining his equipment. People still tried to interview him. News organizations from Earth sent reporters. Alien anthropologists wanted to study him. A few military recruiters even showed up, hoping to convince him to join Earth's defense forces. He turned them all away politely but firmly. He had no interest in fame or attention. He just wanted to farm. One afternoon during harvest, Taman drove out to visit him. Daesung was operating his harvester, a large machine that cut the grain stalks and separated the seeds. Taman waited until he finished a row, then waved him over. "Busy?" Taman asked. "Always." Daesung climbed down from the harvester. His face was covered in dust and sweat. "What brings you out here?" "There's a ship in orbit. Different from the Vrex, they say they're making a documentary about you." Daesung groaned. "Tell them I'm not interested." "I did. They said they'll pay well. I don't need money. The Vrex trade contracts are more than enough. They also said they want to film you working, show people what human farmers actually do." Taman grinned. "Maybe if people see how boring farm work is, they'll stop thinking you're some kind of super warrior." Daesung considered this. He didn't like the attention, but maybe Taman had a point. If people saw the reality of farming, maybe they would lose interest and leave him alone. Fine. 1 day of filming. That's all. The documentary crew arrived a week later. They were a mixed species team. 2 humans, 1 Vrex, and a species Daesung didn't recognize with too many arms. They set up cameras around his farm and followed him through his daily routine. They filmed him checking the irrigation system at dawn. They recorded him repairing a fence that animals had damaged. They watched him spend 3 hours replacing worn parts in his harvester. They documented him working in the fields until sunset, then doing paperwork in his house. The Vrex camera operator, whose name was Torvin, seemed confused. "This is what you do every day?" "Yes." "It's very repetitive. That's farming." Daesung was filling out maintenance logs on his tablet. "Most of life is repetitive if you pay attention. Where do you train for combat?" "I don't." "But you defeated Keshrak." "I defended my property from something that was damaging it." "That's not combat. That's just problem solving." Daesung looked up from his tablet. "You want to know why I won?" "It's simple. That creature expected me to be afraid, but I've been kicked by livestock, nearly crushed by falling equipment, caught in machinery. I've dealt with dangerous situations my entire life. An alien warrior was just another problem to solve." Torvin was quiet for a moment. "Most species separate their civilians from their warriors. Warriors train for combat. Civilians do safe work. Humans don't really do that. We have military specialists, sure. But everyone works. Everyone solves problems. Everyone deals with danger in their daily lives." Daesung went back to his paperwork. "You thought farmers were weak because we're not warriors. But we're strong because farming is hard. We're capable because farm work is dangerous. You just didn't understand what you were looking at." The documentary team spent 3 days filming. They captured Daesung's entire routine. The early mornings, the physical labor, the problem-solving, the endless maintenance. When they finished, the lead director, a human woman named Mirai, thanked him. "This is going to change how people see your species," she said. "I hope it makes them leave me alone," Daesung replied. The documentary was released 2 months later. It was titled The Farmer's War: Understanding Human Strength. It showed Daesung's daily life in complete detail, with expert commentary explaining human evolution, biology, and culture. The response was enormous. Billions of beings across the galaxy watched it. They saw a human lifting heavy equipment that would require machines on other worlds. They saw him work 16-hour days without complaint. They saw him solve complex mechanical problems with simple tools. They saw him walk through conditions that would be considered harsh on many planets, treating it as completely normal. Most importantly, they saw that he was not special. He was average, which meant there were billions more humans just like him. The documentary included analysis from xenobiologists. They explained how humans evolved as persistence hunters, how human endurance was exceptional compared to most species, how human pain tolerance was unusually high, how human psychology was built around problem-solving under stress. One segment compared human civilian work to military training on other worlds. Farmers lifted weights that would be used for strength conditioning. Construction workers operated in dangerous conditions that would be considered combat simulations. Even human children played sports that other species considered too violent. The conclusion was uncomfortable for many species. Humans didn't have warriors and civilians. They had people who specialized in combat and people who specialized in other work. But all of them were capable of violence if necessary. All of them were psychologically and physically prepared for conflict. The Vurex Dominion released a formal statement after the documentary. High Counselor Thexera appeared in an official broadcast. "We have learned an important lesson," she said. "We judged humans by their military strength, which is moderate. We did not consider that their entire population possesses combat-applicable skills. We sent our greatest warrior to conquer a farming colony. A farmer killed him. This was not bad luck. This was not chance. This was us fundamentally misunderstanding the nature of human strength." She paused, then continued. "We are withdrawing from 14 conquered worlds. We are restructuring our expansion strategy. We are opening diplomatic channels with species we previously dominated. The age of the breaker is over. We must adapt to a galaxy where strength comes in many forms." On New Haven, Daesung watched the broadcast with Hana in his living room. When it ended, his sister looked at him. "You changed the galaxy," she said. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to protect my farm, I know. But that's what makes it matter. You weren't trying to prove anything. You were just doing what needed to be done." Daesung shrugged. "Someone has to grow the food. Someone has to do the work. If I spent all my time thinking about how important or meaningful everything was, nothing would get done." Hana smiled. "You're impossible. I'm practical. There's a difference." Later that evening, Daesung stood on his porch watching the sunset. The fields were harvested now, the grain safely stored. In a few weeks, he would need to prepare the soil for next season's planting. The cycle continued, endless and necessary. A ship passed overhead, moving slowly across the sky. It was a Vrex transport, probably carrying grain from New Haven to some distant world. They maintained a respectful distance now, always careful not to interfere with human colonies. Daesung thought about Keshrak sometimes. Not with pride or satisfaction, just with a kind of sad understanding. That creature had been a tool, used by an empire that thought strength was simple. They learned it wasn't. Strength came in many forms: endurance, skill, determination, the ability to keep working when everything hurt. His shovel leaned against the porch railing, exactly where he always left it. Just a tool, nothing special. But in the right hands, at the right moment, it was enough. Tomorrow he would wake up early. He would check the equipment. He would plan next season's crops. He would do all the small necessary tasks that made farming possible. And if another alien warrior ever landed in his field, he would deal with that too. Because that's what farmers did. They dealt with problems. They protected what they had built. They kept working no matter what. The galaxy might see him as a warrior, a legend, a symbol of human strength. But Daesung knew the truth. He was just a man who took care of his land. Everything else was just people not understanding what that meant. The sun set completely and the stars came out. Somewhere up there, species were discussing humanity, debating human strength, wondering what humans were truly capable of. Down here, Daesung went inside to plan tomorrow's work. Commander Velrak stood on the bridge of his ship staring at the screen in complete silence. Around him, his crew was equally quiet. No one spoke. No one moved. They had all watched the same thing, and none of them could believe it. The drop pod had sensors. Everything Keshrak did was recorded and transmitted back to the ship. They had watched the breaker emerge from the pod. They had watched the human approach with nothing but a farming tool. They had watched the fight, and they had watched Keshrak die. "Play it again," Velrak said quietly. The sensor officer pressed a button. The recording started over. They watched the human sidestep Keshrak's charge. They watched him block with the shovel, strike with precision, move with purpose. They watched him crush the breaker's throat and knock the creature unconscious. The entire fight lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. "Analysis," Velrak said. The ship's tactical officer, a Vrex named Mekra, spoke slowly. The human used no weapons. No armor, no enhancements. Just the tool in his own body. How is that possible? "I don't know, Commander. Keshrak was our greatest warrior. 43 worlds have surrendered after seeing what Keshrak could do. This human shouldn't have been able to fight at all, much less win." Velrax watched the recording a third time, paying close attention to the human's movements. There was no wasted motion, no panic, no hesitation. The human moved like someone who had done physical work their entire life. Like someone who understood leverage and timing and how to read an opponent's intentions. "What do we know about this human?" Velrax asked. Mekra checked his console. "His name is Daesung, age 36, occupation farmer, no military service, no combat training on record. He lives alone on a grain farm. Our scans show nothing unusual. He's just a normal human civilian." "Normal," Velrax repeated. The word felt wrong. Nothing about what he had just watched was normal. The communications officer interrupted. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the surface." "It's their mayor. Put it through." Mayor Jiwan's face appeared on the screen. She looked surprised and confused. "Commander Velrax, we've received reports of an incident. One of our citizens encountered your breaker." "We are aware," Velrax said stiffly. Is it dead?" "Yes," Jiwan was quiet for a moment. "I need to be honest, Commander. We didn't send anyone to fight your warrior. This was not planned. One of our farmers he didn't evacuate. He went back to his property and killed the breaker with a shovel. I'm still trying to understand that myself." Jiwan shook her head. "What happens now?" Velrax didn't have an answer. The Dominion's entire strategy was based on the breaker. Every world they approached saw Keshrak's power and surrendered without fighting. It was efficient. It was clean. It had worked 43 times before, but now Keshrak was dead. Killed by a farmer who didn't even want to fight, who just wanted to protect his crops. "I need to consult with the High Command," Velrax said. "Stand by." He closed the channel and turned to his crew. "Send a full report to High Counselor Thixera. Include all sensor recordings. Priority transmission." "Yes, Commander." Velrax sat down in his command chair and thought about the problem. If one human farmer could kill Keshrak, what could human soldiers do? What could their warriors do? And New Haven wasn't even a military colony. It was just farmland. The response from High Command came faster than expected. High Counselor Thixera herself appeared on the screen. She was old even by Vrex standards, with scales that had faded to gray, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Commander Velrax, I have reviewed your report. Explain to me how this happened." "I cannot explain it, Counselor." The human had no advantages. No weapons, no armor, no enhancements. He simply fought better. One human defeated our apex warrior with a farming implement. "Yes, Counselor." Thixera was silent for several seconds. "This changes everything. If the other conquered worlds learn about this, they will rebel. They will realize the breaker was not invincible. Our entire expansion will collapse. What are your orders?" "Do nothing. Do not attack New Haven. Do not send ground forces. I am dispatching our xenobiology team and military analysts to study the humans. We need to understand what happened before we make any more mistakes." The transmission ended. Velrax sat back in his chair, feeling uncertain for the first time in his career. He had been with the Dominion for 30 years. He had overseen 15 world integrations. It always worked the same way. The breaker landed. The locals surrendered. Another world joined the Empire. Now everything was different because one farmer wouldn't leave his field. Over the next several days, The Dominion scientists studied everything they could find about humans. They accessed Earth's databases, reviewed historical records, analyzed combat footage from human military operations. What they discovered disturbed them. Humans were persistence hunters. On their original world, they tracked prey for hours or days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. They had evolved to keep going when everything else stopped. Human reflexes were not faster than other species. But their spatial awareness was exceptional. They could judge distance, timing, and movement with incredible accuracy. Millions of years of hunting had made them expert at reading body language and predicting actions. Most disturbing of all, humans were calm in danger. Other species panicked when threatened. They either fled or fought in desperation. Humans assessed. They calculated. They made decisions while their lives were at risk, and human civilians were not weak. The scientists examined farm work, construction work, manual labor. Humans regularly lifted heavy objects, worked 12 to 16-hour days, and operated dangerous machinery. Their bodies were strong from constant physical activity. The more the Dominion learned, the more worried they became. They had categorized humans based on their military strength, which was average compared to other species. They had not considered that every human settlement was full of people who spent their lives doing work that would be considered combat conditioning on other worlds. High Counselor Thexera called a meeting of the Dominion's leadership. Commanders from across the Empire gathered via hologram to discuss the situation. The human farmer was not special, Thexera explained. He was average for his species, which means there are billions more just like him. If we invade human space, we will not fight armies. We will fight entire populations of physically strong, psychologically resilient individuals who all have combat-applicable skills. We could still win, one commander argued. We have superior technology, perhaps, but the cost would be enormous. And for what? New Haven has nothing we need. Earth's colonies are scattered and mostly agricultural. They are not worth a war. So we do nothing? Another commander asked. We let them kill Keshrak without consequence? We mark human territory as forbidden space, Thexera said firmly. We withdraw our claim on New Haven. We do not engage with human worlds unless they contact us first. And we quietly begin releasing the other worlds we have conquered. Release them? Why? Because word of Keshrak's death is already spreading. I have received reports of uprisings on 3 conquered worlds. If we try to maintain control, we will fight rebellions on dozens of planets simultaneously. The breaker strategy is broken. We must adapt. The decision was made. The Vrex Dominion would withdraw from human space and reorganize their expansion strategy. Down on New Haven's surface, Dae-Sung was unaware of any of this. He had spent 3 days repairing his irrigation system. The local government had sent people to remove Keshrak's body and the drop pod. Reporters had tried to interview him, but he refused to talk to them. Mayor G1 negotiated with Commander Velrax. Instead of conquest, they discussed trade agreements. New Haven's grain was high quality. The Dominion was willing to pay well for regular shipments. Hana visited her brother at his farm. She found him in the fields checking the grain stalks for disease. You're famous, she told him. The story is everywhere. They're calling you the Shovel Warrior. Dae-Sung made a face. Stupid name. You killed an alien super warrior. People are impressed. I protected my farm. That's all. The whole galaxy is talking about it. Some alien species are asking Earth for military cooperation. They want to know how we train our farmers. We don't train farmers. We just work. Dae-Sung pulled up a weed and tossed it aside. Is the irrigation fixed in the North Field? Hana sighed. Her brother would never change. He had defeated the most dangerous warrior in an alien empire, and all he cared about was his crops. But maybe that was exactly why he won. The walk to the crash site took 10 minutes. Dae-Sung moved at his normal pace, shovel resting on his shoulder. The sun was hot on his back. Ahead of him, smoke still rose from the crater where the drop pod had landed. As he got closer, he could see the damage. The pod had smashed through his irrigation pipes. Water sprayed from broken connections, flooding the field. Grain stalks were crushed and burned in a wide circle around the impact point. Dae-Sung sighed. That was at least a week of repairs. The drop pod itself was large and black, made of some kind of metal that still glowed red from the heat of entry. It was shaped like a teardrop, with strange symbols carved into its surface. As Dae-Sung watched, the front of the pod began to open. Hydraulics hissed. Steam poured out. Something moved inside the smoke and steam. Something big. Keshrak emerged slowly like a nightmare taking shape. The creature was even more terrifying in person than in the hologram. 8 feet tall, covered in armor plating that looked like it had grown from its own body. Each hand had 4 fingers ending in claws as long as knives. Its legs were thick and powerful, designed for running and jumping. The head was broad and angular, with too many teeth visible even when its mouth was closed. The creature's eyes found Daesung immediately. They were black and cold without any emotion he could recognize. Keshrak stepped out of the pod fully, and the ground shook under its weight. Daesung stopped about 20 meters away. He planted his shovel in the ground and leaned on it, studying the creature. Keshrak studied him back. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then Keshrak opened its mouth and roared. The sound was deafening, a mix of a lion's roar and metal scraping on metal. It echoed across the fields. Birds flew away in panic. The creature's roar went on, a declaration of power and dominance. Daesung waited patiently for it to finish. He had heard bulls bellow, dogs bark, wild cats scream. Noise was just noise. When the roar finally ended, he spoke in a calm voice. "Are you finished?" Keshrak tilted its head, confused. This wasn't the response it expected. Prey animals ran. Prey animals screamed. They didn't stand still and ask questions. The creature began its intimidation display. It raised its arms and showed its claws. It flexed its muscles, making the armor plates shift and grind. It walked in a circle, demonstrating its size and strength. Then it grabbed a piece of farming equipment near the crater, a heavy plow made of steel, and ripped it in half with its bare hands. The metal shrieked as it tore. Daesung watched all of this without expression. When Keshrak threw the broken plow pieces aside, Daesung spoke again. "That plow cost 3,000 credits. You're paying for it." Keshrak roared again, frustrated. Why wasn't this human afraid? The creature charged forward, moving faster than something that size should be able to move. Its claws extended, ready to slash and tear. Daesung didn't run. He simply stepped to the side, smooth and efficient. Keshrak rushed past him, missing by inches. The creature's momentum carried it forward several meters before it could stop and turn around. They faced each other again. Keshrak was breathing heavily, angry now. This human moved wrong. Prey didn't move like that. Prey panicked and stumbled. This human moved with purpose, with calculation. Keshrak charged again, this time trying to predict where Daesung would dodge. But Daesung didn't dodge the same way twice. He stepped forward instead of sideways, getting inside the creature's reach. Keshrak's claws passed over his head. Before the creature could recover, Daesung brought his shovel up and shoved the handle hard into Keshrak's midsection. The impact didn't hurt the creature, but it did something worse. It broke Keshrak's balance. The creature stumbled backwards, surprised. No prey had ever counterattacked before. No prey had ever touched it during a fight. Daesung backed away, creating distance again. He adjusted his grip on the shovel. His face was still calm, but his eyes were focused and alert. This was like dealing with a territorial bull in his field. You watched the animal's movements. You stayed calm. You used its own aggression against it. Keshrak circled him slowly now, more cautious. The creature was reassessing. This human was different. This human had fought before, not in wars or battles, but in the daily survival work of living on a farm. Daesung had been kicked by livestock, nearly crushed by falling equipment, caught in machinery. He had learned to move quickly and precisely or else get hurt. The creature lunged again, but this time it was a feint. When Daesung started to sidestep, Keshrak changed direction and slashed with its other claw. The move was clever, practiced on dozens of worlds against dozens of species. But Daesung saw it coming. He dropped low below the slash and swung his shovel at Keshrak's knee. The blade connected with a solid crack. The armor plating protected the joint from breaking, but the impact was hard enough to make Keshrak stumble. The creature roared in frustration and pain. This wasn't supposed to happen. Keshrak was the breaker. Keshrak was invincible. How was a single human with a farming tool causing problems? Daesung didn't give it time to think. While Keshrak was off balance, he swung the shovel again, this time at the creature's head. Keshrak blocked with its arm, but the force of the blow pushed it backward. The creature's feet slipped in the mud created by the broken irrigation pipes. They fought in silence after that. No more roaring, no more displays. Just combat. Keshrak attacked with claws and teeth and raw strength. Daesung defended with his shovel, using the tool to block, redirect, and strike. Each of Keshrak's attacks was powerful enough to kill instantly. Each of Daesung's movements was minimal, efficient, wasting no energy. The fight moved around the crater, destroying more of the field. Grain stalks fell under their feet. Water from the broken pipes made the ground slippery. Keshrak kept expecting to win through pure force and ferocity. Taesung kept surviving through timing and positioning. Then Keshrak made a mistake. The creature committed fully to an overhead strike with both claws, trying to end the fight with one massive blow. It was the kind of attack that had worked on every other world, crushing defenders under sheer power. Taesung saw the opening. As the claws came down, he stepped forward instead of back. He raised the shovel horizontal and caught the creature's wrists on the wooden handle. The impact drove him to one knee, but he held firm. For a moment, they were locked together, the creature's strength against the human's resistance. Then Taesung twisted the shovel hard to the side, using leverage instead of strength. Keshrak's arms were forced apart, leaving its throat exposed. Before the creature could recover, Taesung rose up and drove the flat of the shovel blade directly into Keshrak's throat with all his strength. The impact was perfect. The blade caught the creature right below its armored jaw, in the soft tissue of its neck. The force collapsed Keshrak's windpipe despite its natural armor. The creature made a choking, gurgling sound and staggered backward, its hands going to its throat. Taesung didn't hesitate. He swung the shovel one more time, a full, powerful arc that connected with the side of Keshrak's head. The creature's skull was thick and strong, but the blow still sent it crashing to the ground. Keshrak lay in the mud, struggling to breathe, struggling to move. Its black eyes looked up at Taesung with something that might have been confusion or fear or simply surprise. No one had ever beaten Keshrak before. The creature had conquered 43 worlds, and now it was dying in a grain field, killed by a farmer with a shovel. Taesung stood over the creature, breathing hard, his clothes soaked with sweat and mud. He watched until Keshrak stopped moving. He waited another minute to be sure. When he was certain the threat was ended, he lowered his shovel. "Stay down," he said quietly. "I have work to finish." He turned away from the body and walked toward the broken irrigation pipes. Water was still spraying everywhere, flooding his field. That needed to be fixed first. Then he would deal with the dead alien. Then he would need to replant the damaged grain. Behind him, Keshrak the Undefeated lay still in the mud, conquered by the one thing the Vrex Dominion had never considered a threat. An ordinary human doing ordinary work on an ordinary day. The morning air was cool and fresh when Taesung woke up. He opened his eyes before the alarm could ring, just like every other day for the past 15 years. His small house sat alone on a hill, surrounded by fields of golden grain that stretched far in every direction. This was his land, his farm, and his life. He got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. The coffee maker started automatically at 5 in the morning. He poured himself a cup and stood by the window, watching the sun slowly rise over his fields. The grain swayed gently in the morning breeze. Everything looked perfect. Taesung was 36 years old. He had lived on this farm his entire life. His parents built this place when they first came to New Haven, a small colony world far from Earth. They worked the land for 40 years before retiring to the coast. Now the farm belonged to Taesung and he took care of it alone. He finished his coffee and pulled on his work boots. The leather was old and worn, molded perfectly to his feet from years of use. He grabbed his wide-brimmed hat from the hook by the door and stepped outside. His truck sat in the driveway, covered in dust from yesterday's work. Next to it leaned his shovel, the metal blade scratched and dented from constant use. The irrigation system needed checking first. Taesung climbed into his truck and drove along the dirt paths between his fields. He stopped every few hundred meters to examine the water channels and pipes. Everything had to work perfectly. One broken pipe could ruin an entire section of crops. He found a small leak in the southern field. Water trickled from a joint in the plastic piping. Taesung sighed and grabbed his toolbox from the truck. He cut out the damaged section and replaced it with a new piece. His hands moved quickly and efficiently. He had done this repair hundreds of times before. By noon, he had checked all the fields. Everything was working well. The grain was growing strong and healthy. In 2 more months, it would be ready for harvest. Taesung allowed himself a small smile. It would be a good year. He drove back to his house for lunch. His sister Hana had left him a container of food yesterday. She worried that he didn't eat properly. She was probably right. Taesung heated up the rice and vegetables and ate while reading the local news on his tablet. Most of the news was boring. The mayor of Clearwater, a woman named Ji-won, was planning a new community center. The school needed more teachers. Someone's farm animals had escaped and caused trouble in town. Normal, peaceful things. But there was one story that caught his attention. The Galactic News section mentioned something about the Vrex Dominion. They were an alien empire that controlled many worlds across this part of the galaxy. According to the report, they had just conquered another planet called Helios Prime. The people there had surrendered without fighting. Dae-sung frowned. He didn't pay much attention to galactic politics. New Haven was far from all of that. They had no military base, no defense force, nothing worth conquering. Just farms and small towns. The Vrex Dominion would never bother with a place like this. He finished his lunch and went back outside. The afternoon was hot and he spent it working in the western fields. Some weeds had started growing between the grain stalks. He moved through the rows, pulling them out by hand. It was slow, boring work, but it needed to be done. Around 4 o'clock, his friend Taman called him. Taman owned a repair shop in Clearwater, fixing farm equipment and vehicles. "Hey, Dae-sung, you coming to town this week?" "Maybe tomorrow," Dae-sung said. "I need to pick up some parts for the harvester." "Good, we can get a drink." "You work too much." Dae-sung smiled. Taman said this every time they talked. "Someone has to grow the food you eat." Yeah. "See you tomorrow." The sun was setting when Dae-sung finally stopped working. His back ached and his hands were dirty, but he felt satisfied. A good day's work. He drove back to his house and took a long shower. Then he made a simple dinner and sat on his porch watching the stars come out. New Haven had beautiful night skies. With no big cities and very little light pollution, the stars shone bright and clear. Dae-sung could see the distant glow of the Milky Way stretching across the darkness. Somewhere up there, the Vrex Dominion was conquering worlds, but down here everything was peaceful. He was about to go inside when something caught his eye. A light in the sky moving slowly. At first he thought it was a satellite. New Haven had a few communication satellites in orbit, but this light looked different. It was bigger and brighter, and it seemed to be getting closer. Dae-sung watched it for several minutes. The light moved across the sky in a straight line, then stopped. It hovered in one spot directly above his region. He felt a small, uncomfortable feeling in his stomach. That wasn't normal. He went inside and checked his tablet. The local news had a new alert. Strange vessel detected in orbit. Mayor Ji-won was calling an emergency meeting in Clearwater tomorrow morning. All residents were advised to stay calm. Dae-sung set down the tablet. He wasn't panicking, but he wasn't completely calm either. Something was happening, something unusual. New Haven was a forgotten corner of human space. Nothing interesting ever happened here. That was why he liked it. He went to bed but couldn't sleep well. His mind kept returning to that light in the sky. Who was up there? What did they want? New Haven had nothing valuable except farmland. Maybe it was just a passing ship. Maybe they would leave soon, but deep down Dae-sung had a feeling that his quiet life was about to change. He stared at the ceiling in the darkness, listening to the wind outside. His shovel leaned against the wall near his front door, right where he always left it. Just a simple farming tool. Nothing special. Tomorrow he would drive to town and find out what was going on. Tomorrow he would learn about the ship in orbit. Tomorrow everything would be different. But tonight he was still just a farmer lying in his bed, thinking about irrigation pipes and grain harvests and the endless work that came with caring for the land. Tonight, the galaxy's problems still felt very far away. The stars continued to shine outside his window, cold and distant and indifferent to the worries of one man on one small farm on one forgotten world. Dae-sung woke early again, but this time he didn't go straight to work. He got dressed and drove his truck toward Clearwater. The town was only 20 minutes away along the main road. Usually he made this trip once a week for supplies. Today felt different. The town square was crowded when he arrived. Nearly everyone in Clearwater had come to the meeting. Dae-sung parked his truck and walked toward the community hall. He saw his sister Hana standing near the entrance with a group of other teachers. "Dae-sung," she waved at him. "I'm glad you came." "This is serious. What's happening?" "We don't know yet. Mayor Ji-won is inside talking to someone from the ship. They made contact an hour ago." Dae-sung followed his sister into the building. The main hall was packed with people. Farmers, shopkeepers, teachers, mechanics. Everyone was talking nervously. Taman spotted him and pushed through the crowd. "Did you see the ship last night?" "I saw a light in the sky. It's huge. Old man Bonsu has a telescope." He looked at it this morning. Says it's the size of a mountain. Before Dae-sung could respond, Mayor Ji-won walked onto the stage at the front of the hall. She was a tall woman with gray hair, usually calm and confident. Today she looked worried. The crowd went quiet. "Everyone, please listen carefully," Ji-won said. Her voice was steady but serious. "This morning at 6 o'clock, we received a communication from the vessel in orbit. They call themselves the Vrex Dominion. They say they have claimed New Haven as part of their empire." The crowd erupted in shocked voices. People shouted questions. Ji-won raised her hands for silence. "Please let me finish. I'm going to show you their message." She pressed a button on her tablet. A hologram appeared above the stage. It showed an alien creature. The being was tall and thin, covered in dark blue scales. Its eyes were large and yellow with vertical pupils like a snake. It wore elaborate armor decorated with strange symbols. The alien spoke. Its voice was translated into human language by a computer. "I am Commander Velrax of the Vrex Dominion. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. We do not wish unnecessary bloodshed. Therefore, we follow tradition. We send our breaker." The hologram changed. It now showed a different creature. This one was massive, at least 8 feet tall. Its body was covered in thick plates of natural armor, dark red and black. Long claws extended from its hands. Its face had too many teeth. The creature looked like it was built only for killing. "This is Keshrak," Commander Velrax continued. "Keshrak is our greatest warrior. Keshrak has conquered 43 worlds. Keshrak has never been defeated. We will send Keshrak to your surface. Keshrak will demonstrate the power of the Dominion. After you see what Keshrak can do, you will surrender peacefully. This is our way. This is mercy." The hologram showed the creature again roaring silently. Then the message ended. The crowd was completely silent for several seconds. Then everyone started talking at once. Dae-sung heard fear in their voices.
Some people were crying.
Others were angry. "We need to evacuate," someone shouted. "Where can we go? There's nowhere to run." "We should try to fight." "Fight with what?" "We have farming equipment." Mayor Ji-won held up her hands again. "Please, everyone calm down. We're trying to contact Earth for help. But Earth is 3 months away, even with fast ships. We need to think about what we can do right now." "When is this breaker coming?" someone asked. "According to Commander Velrax, the drop pod will launch in 2 hours. It will land somewhere in the farmland region outside town." Dae-sung felt that uncomfortable feeling in his stomach again. The farmland region. That meant his property or one of the neighboring farms. He thought about his fields, his irrigation system, his house on the hill. Hana grabbed his arm. "You need to come stay in town. It's not safe out there." "My farm, your farm doesn't matter if that monster kills you." Taemin nodded. "She's right. That thing looks dangerous. Let the mayor figure something out." But Dae-sung was thinking about the grain. 2 months until harvest. If something destroyed his fields now, a whole year of work would be wasted. His parents had built this farm from nothing. He wasn't going to abandon it, because some aliens decided to play their dominance games. The meeting continued. Mayor Ji-won talked about organizing shelter in the strongest buildings. Someone suggested trying to build weapons. Another person wanted to negotiate with Commander Velrax. Everyone had ideas, but no one had solutions. Dae-sung slipped out of the hall while people were still arguing. He walked back to his truck. Hana ran after him. "Where are you going?" "Home, I need to check on things." "Dae-sung, this is insane. That creature could land right on your property." "Then I'll deal with it." He climbed into his truck. "Deal with it? Did you see that thing? It's killed entire armies." The message said it conquered 43 worlds. That doesn't mean it fought armies. It just means people surrendered after seeing it. Dae-sung started the engine. "I'm not abandoning my farm, Hana." His sister looked at him with frustration and fear. "You're the most stubborn person I know. I learned from the best." He gave her a small smile. "Don't worry. I'll be fine. I've dealt with territorial bulls and wild dogs. I know how to handle aggressive animals. That's not an animal. That's a weapon. Everything bleeds." Dae-sung put the truck in gear. "Stay in town, stay safe. I'll see you later." He drove away before she could argue more. In his mirror, he saw her standing in the parking lot looking worried and angry. He felt bad for making her worry, but he meant what he said. He wasn't leaving his farm. The drive back seemed shorter than usual. The sun was climbing higher, making the day warm. Under normal circumstances, he would be working in the fields right now. Instead, he was preparing for an alien warrior to drop from the sky. When he reached his house, Daesung parked and sat for a moment. What was he actually going to do? He had no weapons except a hunting rifle that he used for scaring away predators. That creature would probably laugh at a rifle. He got out of the truck and looked around his property. The field stretched in every direction. The grain swayed peacefully in the breeze. His irrigation system hummed quietly. Everything was so normal, so peaceful. Then he heard it. A distant thunder growing louder. Daesung looked up and saw a streak of fire crossing the sky. The drop pod. It was falling fast, leaving a trail of smoke behind it. He watched its trajectory. His heart sank. The pod was heading straight for his southern field. The one where he had fixed the irrigation leak yesterday. Of course, he muttered. The pod hit the ground with an enormous boom. The impact shook the earth. Daesung saw dirt and smoke explode into the air about half a kilometer away, right in the middle of his field. Right on top of his irrigation system. For a moment, he just stood there. Then he walked to his truck and opened the back. He pulled out his shovel. The handle was smooth wood, worn comfortable from years of use. The metal blade was heavy and solid. Daesung started walking toward the smoke. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He was just tired of things breaking his irrigation system. First leaks, now aliens. A farmer's work was never done.